Breaking news! Things are heating up behind the scenes at the Buffalo Bills, and we're not just talking about the weather. We're talking high energy, tension in the air, and that spark you only feel when a team knows that their time is now. Training sessions are intense, rumors are flying, and the fan base is on fire. Josh Allen's throwing darts like a maestro of mayhem, the defense is sharpening its claws, and the entire locker room is locked in with one goal, the Super Bowl. But hold up, before we go any further, make sure you hit that like button if you believe the Bills have what it takes to go all the way this season. Because honestly, I believe so much in this squad. And if you're riding with us too, drop it in the comments loud and proud. Go Bills! I believe! Now buckle up, cause there's a lot more coming. What if I told you that the Buffalo Bills are heading into the 2025 NFL Draft with a move that could shake the very foundation of their defense? One that may surprise even the most diehard members of Bills Mafia? You've heard the rumors, you've seen the mocks, but what's really going on in the war room? We're peeling back the curtain on a decision that could define the next era of Buffalo football. And believe me, once you hear the full story, you'll want to stay till the very end. This isn't just speculation, this is the real deal, straight from the source, and it's time to talk about it. So let's get into it. The Bills hold the 30th overall pick in this year's draft, and the debate has been intense. At the heart of it is Georgia safety Malachi Starks, a name that's been echoed across NFL circles all week. But is he truly in play for Buffalo? Should he be? And what does this mean for a team that prides itself on building from the trenches out? Took fans through a full, no-holds-barred breakdown in his final thoughts ahead of draft night, and it paints a picture that's as revealing as it is uncertain. First things first, Marino didn't just drop names. He laid out the blueprint for what he believes GM Brandon Beane is plotting. And while Malachi Starks is very much a part of the conversation, he's not the only potential headliner. In fact, for most of the week, Marino had himself convinced the Bills were targeting a cornerback. Trey Amos out of Ole Mississippi. Amos checks every box for what Buffalo likes in a first-round corner. Marino has a first-round grade on him. Great instincts, physical tools, scheme fit. He even fits the Bills' prototype at the position. But then, Marino backed off. Why? Because the puzzle pieces don't quite fit. Brandon Beane's comments about Trey White and Dane Jackson raised eyebrows. The belief within one Bills drive seems to be that White, despite his injury history, is still penciled in as the starter opposite Christian Benford. Add to that the fact that Beane's been candid about how highly he values both White and Jackson, even drawing parallels between White and Charles Peanut Tillman from Beane's Carolina days. For those with sharp memories, Tillman was brought in during the Panthers' 2015 Super Bowl run, and White, Marino notes, is actually 4 years younger now than Tillman was then. So if Buffalo really believes in Trey White's comeback story, using their first-rounder on a backup corner doesn't add up. That's where the defensive tackle discussion takes center stage. Marino believes the writing is on the wall, and it spells Kenneth Grant. The Michigan standout is his predicted pick at 30, and it's not hard to see why. When you look at Buffalo's current depth chart at DT, things get shaky real quick. If the season started tomorrow without veteran Larry Ogunjobi, it'd be Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones starting, with Zion Logue and Dwayne Carter backing them up. That's not exactly a lineup you want in a dogfight against the AFC's elite. Jones, in particular, is entering the final year of his deal, approaching his mid-30s, and showing signs of slowing down. You need a long-term answer, and Grant, with his combination of power, size, and upside, looks like the right move. Marino isn't hedging here. He's confident. He's studied the tape, considered the team's philosophy, and come away with this conclusion: the Bills are going defensive tackle, and Kenneth Grant is the guy. But the Malachi Starks hype isn't going away, and that's where things get even more interesting. Marino's take on Starks is clear. He loves him. The Georgia safety is number 18 on his big board, and Marino has no doubts about his talent. Incredible ball skills, great in man coverage, versatile enough to play single high or slide down into the slot. If the Bills do take him at 30, it'll be a high-value pick in a vacuum. But that's where the challenge lies, because football isn't played in a vacuum. It's played in the context of needs, depth charts, and roster-building philosophy. There's also an intriguing connection here. Starks was coached at Georgia by Jamil Ayu, now the Bills' corners coach. That kind of dot connecting always raises eyebrows ahead of the draft. But for Marino, the hesitation comes down to resource allocation. The Bills, he argues, have bigger needs. And with the recent selection of Cole Bishop it's fair to ask, is safety really where Buffalo wants to invest its top asset? Then there's Taylor Rapp. Has the team already lost faith in him? He was a hero in key moments last season, but consecutive years missing time when it mattered most has to be a concern. Still, going safety again, back-to-back years, feels like a luxury move in a year where the trenches need urgent reinforcement. The big what if here is, what if the Bills pick Starks, but then follow it up with strong picks at DT and D on day 2? If they land a Nick Scourton, Landon Jackson, or Josh Farmer, then maybe, just maybe, the Starks pick looks like a genius play in hindsight. But if they don't, then we're talking about going to sleep Thursday night knowing the defense still doesn't have the firepower it needs up front. That brings us to cornerback. Even though Marino stepped away from the idea of taking a CB in round 1, he's not dismissing the position entirely. The Bills still need bodies, especially if White's comeback doesn't stick or Jackson can't elevate. The possibility of targeting high upside guys with question marks, like Savion Redwell or Benjamin Morrison, on day 2 or 3 is very real. Marino even floated the idea of trading up for players like Noel Williams or grabbing Dorian Strong in the 4th. There's a quiet confidence that the Bills will get a corner. They just don't feel pressed to do it early. And that brings us to Marino's ultimate day 3 checklist. It's not just about starters, it's about roster construction. A tight end 3 who's more than just camp fodder. Speed at receiver with special teams value. Linebacker depth to challenge and complement Dorian Williams. A double dip at defensive tackle. An interior offensive lineman with starter upside. And yes, maybe even a punter. Because let's face it, neither Jake Camarda nor Brad Robbins inspires much faith. If the right specialist is there, it could be time for Buffalo to make a move. So now that you've seen the big picture, now that you've walked through every layer of strategy, prediction, and behind-the-scenes insight, where do you stand? Do the Bills go trench warfare and grab Kenneth Grant at 30? Do they roll the dice on Starks and hope they can still fill the gaps later on? Or does Brandon Beane have something totally unexpected up his sleeve? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you think the Bills should do, and who you think they're actually going to pick. Let's light it up down there. And now let's keep going, because if you're like me, the more you think about these scenarios, the more questions pop up. This draft isn't just about filling holes. It's about setting the stage for the next 2 to 3 years of Bills football, and how this front office decides to act will either keep this team in contention or open up cracks that could be hard to patch. Let's start with a truth that Bills Mafia might not want to hear. You can't fix every roster issue in one draft. That's what makes this first-round selection so critical. It's not just about 2025, it's about 2026 and beyond. If Kenneth Grant is the pick, you're drafting someone who might not play 70% of the snaps in year 1, but could be the foundation of your D-line for years. He's a force. Marino has him as the number 15 player on his board, which means value-wise, the Bills will be getting a potential top 20 talent at pick 30. And let's be honest, the way this league is trending, you can never have enough dominant defensive linemen. Look at the teams playing deep into January. They win because they get pressure without blitzing. They rotate big bodies who collapse pockets and stuff the run. That's what Grant can be. And remember, Daquan Jones is aging, Ed Oliver has had his share of inconsistencies, and you're one injury away from disaster in the trenches. So from that standpoint, the logic is airtight. But let's zoom out again to Malachi Starks, because Marino's take raises an